Hello, dear viewer. Today I'd like to talk about Group A of the World Cup 2014 in Brazil next year.
Group A is traditionally the host nation's group. Well, traditionally since 2006, I should say. And that is Brazil this time around, who will be squaring off against Croatia in the World Cup's opening match on June the 12th in Sao Paulo. And then on June 17th in Fortaleza against Mexico, and finally on the 23rd they will be facing Cameroon in their capital, Brasilia. Brazil is always a force to be reckoned with in World Cups. They've won a record 5 of them in 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and 2002. Playing at home, it makes them even tougher to beat. If there's one thing to be said about home court advantage in soccer, is that it is entirely possible for the audience to win it. Brazil proved their dominance at home this year at Confederations Cup, which is kind of like a dress rehearsal type of tournament. They spanked Spain 3-0 as if to say, "You want the cup? Come at me, bro." Now, being drawn with Brazil playing at home is kind of like having your name drawn to volunteer going down into a starving tiger's cage with stakes wrapped around your body. No one wants that fate. Yet someone's got to do it, and this time around it's the unlucky Croatians, Mexicans, and Cameroonians who'll be pretty much all be hoping for second place here. Now, who you're drawn with and at what place you're drawn in your group can have almost the same kind of impact. Some teams may rather play Brazil first and get rid of the tough match right away, and some might rather leave the hardest for last. In this instance, Croatia has their toughest match in their opener at Sao Paulo. Then with probably zero momentum and needing a victory badly to bounce back, they'll be forced to travel clear across the country 6 days later to Manaus to squeeze a victory against Cameroon, something that'll likely test the players' psyche just as much as it'll test their bodies. I believe out of all the teams Brazil is facing in Group A, Croatia probably has it the worst because of this. They finished their campaign against Mexico in Recife, where I'm absolutely certain both teams will be arriving needing the victory in order to proceed to knockout stages. Croatia's basically playing in ultra-hard mode here. However, they do know all about having to start off in a group against Brazil. In 2006, they were also drawn alongside them, along with Japan and Australia, but because they lost their opening match against Brazil, they had a tough time against Japan and Australia, needing victories but merely managing 2 ties, and so they returned home dejected after 3 games. Even further back, Croatia in 2002 was drawn, curiously, against Mexico, where they had drawn Mexico in their opening match also. They lost that opening match back then, and the story was the same. They lost, bounced back, won their second match, but they lost that crucial third match. History seems to pretty much have given us a blueprint for Croatia's fate. Now, Mexico starts off in Natal against Cameroon. The luckiest start they could have hoped for being drawn in this group, except that it's lucky for Cameroon as well. And both will be desperately counting on that first victory to clinch those 3 valuable points. Mexico then flies to Fortaleza to do their best to eke out a tie against a hungry Brazil, which is kind of like hoping that you find a $100 bill just lying around. Sure, it would be nice, but it's unrealistic to count on it happening. They end their campaign in Recife against a very likely beaten-down Croatia, and unlike them, Mexico's travel is comparably lighter, getting to stick to the northeastern coast for the entirety of their campaign. So a lot of beaches and sand for Mexicans, while Croatians will be in the Amazon jungle manning it halfway through theirs.
So to recap, after having a ridiculously easy qualifying campaign where the United States practically gave them their berth on a silver platter, Mexico gets not only convenient placement against their rivals in their group, but also the easiest travel schedule in their group. Now that is lucky.
Historically, Mexico has always made the knockout stages since 1994. However, they've always been the first to be knocked out once they're there, though. This time might just prove to be their first 3-and-outer. It all depends on whether Cameroon can take advantage of the sequence of their games and realize how important it is for them to beat Mexico in their opener. Cameroon, like Croatia, has a terrible travel schedule. First they go to Natal, then Manaus, then Brasilia. so they'll also be tired from travel. But, unlike Croatia, they will have left the worst for last, which in this case may actually work in their favor. If they can clinch 3 points versus Mexico in Natal, and then beat a beaten-down Croatia in Manaus, Cameroon will have guaranteed second spot, and thus a spot in the knockout stages. Then they can just relax against Brazil in their third game. It'll all depend on what shape they're in by the time they arrive in Brasilia. Personally, I see a lot of tough 1-1, 2-2 ties happening. I think the match sequence favors Cameroon. The travel schedule definitely favors Mexico. But Mexico has Brazil right as their second match, which could prove disastrous for their momentum and their morale. The match that'll decide the fate of the group, in my opinion, will be the Mexico versus Cameroon match in Natal. For even a tie would be more convenient for Cameroon than it'll be for Mexico. I think Croatia once again has been shafted. Now, a surprise elimination of Brazil in group stages could happen simply due to the fact that all these teams will feel like they need to at least eke a tie against Brazil just to have a little more leverage. But Brazil eliminated at home in group stages? I don't think the fans would let them leave the stadium alive. Don't count on that happening. So, my map for the group looks like this. Brazil breezing to 3 victories, Cameroon tying Mexico and beating Croatia simply due to their match sequence. Mexico is coming to World Cup with no momentum and a team that is anything but consistent. Croatia just has terrible luck and history that suggests that it may very well be fated to lose again. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Let me know what you think.
I hope you enjoyed this slightly in-depth analysis of Group A. If you like it, stick around for the next one. Till next time, dear viewer.